This week on Happy Hour, we told you last week we were going to have a special guest, and we're so excited that we do. We're going to talk about overcoming obstacles and how to stay faithful during all of that right here today on Happy Hour. Welcome back to Happy Hour. I'm Rick.
And I'm Holly.
And this is our podcast for young adults here at the Cathedral of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus. And boy, you know, Holly, we spoke about this last week. We talked about fear.
Yes.
Right? That was a good one. I like that a lot.
Yes.
And that can that can drive us, but not really. It's our faith that overcomes. We spoke about all that. But it really leads us into this week's discussion with our guest. We're going to be talking a lot about some obstacles that we face in life, how some maybe tips and tricks on how to overcome that. But also the most important factor is how do we stay faithful? And to do that, I am privileged to introduce to you all our good friend, Dottie, who is with us, joining us for the first time. And I believe this is Dottie's first podcast. Am I correct?
Yes.
Say hi, Dottie.
Hi.
There it is. Wasn't that easy? So simple. Dottie, I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself a little bit more. Holly, you just got to meet her, a few minutes ago for the first time. And, I was privileged enough to meet Dottie a few weeks ago. And there's so much she has to offer, I think, with her life experience and what she's been able to not just endure, but to thrive through, that I couldn't help but bring her on the Young Adult Podcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear your story, Dottie.
Dottie, tell us a little bit about yourself. Are you born and raised here in this great state of Tennessee? What about Knoxville? How long have you lived here? Family, what does that look like? What did you do for a living? All these things. Let us know who you are.
Yes, I was born and raised in Knoxville. I have a large family, fortunately. I went away to school in high school, but came back here for college and then met the love of my life, and I married at 19. We had 2 children. And unfortunately, he was killed 8 years later, and our sons were 4 and 6. My first realization that I was not in charge. I come from a loving family, but I lack for nothing materially. Mm-hmm. But then you discover what's really important.
Right.
We moved back to Knoxville. We were living in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
And we moved, and 2 years later, I remarried, actually a friend of my parents who was 11 years older, who had never been married, believe it or not. And I raised 2 more children with him.
Wow.
And I just have been here ever since and tried to be a part of my community.
That's incredible. So Colorado, how long did you live in Colorado?
8 years.
Oh, okay. And with Denver area, that's the...
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Colorado Springs, which is to the south.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting. Again, I've only been in Knoxville for the last couple of years, been here many times, and I've always loved it. Holly...
I've only been here a few years too, because I came from Georgia. So I lived there my whole life, and then I came up to Knoxville. So it's
What brought you to Knoxville? I'm curious. I'm always curious.
Yes. The University of Tennessee has the major and program for the deaf and hard of hearing and special education that I wanted. So it really brought me here, and I love the community here and the authentic people. I think that's one of the main characteristics almost of Knoxville in the city.
Absolutely.
We're mountain people.
Ah, okay.
And if you don't know about that, I, for instance, am Scotch-Irish, majorly. No telling what else I am.
Oh, okay.
But we are people who cannot be ruled from the top down. If you think about England, who have they not been able to subdue? The Scotch and the Irish. But we will be ruled from the bottom up if we approve of it. So that's why we're loyal to a fault. Mm-hmm. We're very family oriented. The women are warriors. They will protect their family over anything.
I love that so much. I think it really explains and helps me to understand why I love the people in Tennessee. You know, Dottie, I lived in Florida for 11 years. I know. And that's not the South. That's the angry North. That's Florida. So when I felt Southern hospitality was when I was in Tennessee. So that makes a lot of sense to connect those dots. So you were raised here. You came back here. You've been here for a while. And I know that we have, you know, just in our talking and you being able to speak with Holly a little bit, you've had some highs, which you spoke of. You've also had some lows. You mentioned your first husband died.
Yes, he was killed in an automobile accident going to Mexico. He was someone who fixed problems at, it was Litton Industries, which I'm not sure they're still in business.
I've never heard of them.
No, well... anyway, they and they were on a back road with fog. I had left him at the airport, and the next thing I knew, at my front door was a highway patrolman and a next door neighbor. And I can probably tell you verbatim what they said. And of course, my question was anybody hurt? And he handed me his glasses case and his wallet, and it hit me. So anyway, everyone in my family, everybody seemed to fall apart. And so I didn't grieve him until I was 58 years old in therapy about my second husband. And they asked me about John McKenzie was his name. And the flood, and I'm not a crying person, and the floodgates came. But I didn't have time. I had 2 young sons, which were such a gift, and I had them for the rest of my life. And so I just bucked it up. I went to my faith. And one thing that's great about faith, and in the particular church that I'm in, if you're having one of these things happen, you can go and you can get through the next second, and then the next minute, and then the next hour, and then the next day. You're never alone.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing to take away, is that in those moments that we are never, ever alone. Now, you had remarried, which is wonderful. You had now 4 kids at this point. And I know, again, just because I know a little bit more of your background, you've had some medical things kind of happen specifically to you throughout this process. So it wasn't just didn't seem like it was just one thing. If you don't mind, you share whatever you would like to about maybe any medical issues that came along the way.
Well, lucky as you can be with your genes. My family have a gene named BRCA2, which is a breast cancer, also colon and ovarian, and now they think pancreatic cancer. And I lost my sister at 53 and my cousin at 35. We are the 3 females in that generation. It goes normally from mother to daughter. My daughter has it, and her girls will be tested in the next year. They now have a blood test for it, and so that you can be an advocate. So I had a prophylactic mastectomy, wanting to live to be 50, and here I am at 62. I had colon cancer that had spread. I'm a 2% survivor. Again, I don't know whether I'm so bad, God just give me a long time, or whether he has more for me to do. Because when something like your husband is killed and you're young, you decide what's important and what is not important. Right. And you live that way. There's a saying I read every morning: be with the people who make you laugh. With those who do not treat you well, pray for them.
Oh.
And that is so true.
I like that a lot.
Yes. Well, beyond that, I then had Meniere's. I'm a typical person. That's a classic perfectionist. And was smote to the ground. I guess I wasn't listening to God. Therefore, he got my attention.
He sure did.
Ending up bedridden.
Oh, my goodness.
But very fortunately, a new study was being done at Vanderbilt, and I was able to have it work. I'm one of 15% that it worked on. After that and surviving cancer, then a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, my father was nice enough to pass on diabetes.
Of course.
We didn't understand this. It just, I have not lived that kind of lifestyle, but evidently it doesn't matter if it's a genetic.
Yeah.
The last challenge I had was 4 years ago, and having just gone on the diabetes medicine, metformin, I had some problems with it. And suddenly I had this rash and these blood blisters in my mouth. So I told my son, they were all at my house in South Carolina, to, let's go. It's that dumb medicine. So I go over there, and the doctor takes one, looks at me, and says, CBC, excuse me.
Whew.
I was like,
And they come back, and he and the nurse are there with 2 sheets of paper, and they said, we thought our machine was broken. You have 5, which means 5,000 platelets. And I said, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, you should have 240 to 260
Oh, my
platelets.
goodness.
And we've already called the emergency room. Here's where the nearest whatever is. And so I go over there. And as I left, the doctor said to me, do not stop for those shoes you wanted to buy. They will be waiting on you. By the time I got there, they got a hematologist. I had no platelets. Now, I should have bled out at 30. But again, what is this, God? So you got more for me to do, And they hooked me up to this stuff, and it all worked, as in cancer. Everything that I had, 2 experimental drugs, worked.
Wow.
So me facing obstacles has not been such a terrible deal because I'm never alone. And obviously, if you learn to listen to what God wants, it's amazing what you find out. But you have to be silent to do that.
That's an excellent point, right? I think that we've spoken about that before too, right, Holly?
Yes.
About you have to kind of turn everything off, not be drowned out by the world and all the distractions. It's when we really find the Lord is in the silence, and it speaks about that in the Old Testament, right? So, and I will also say that that's a laundry list of things to have happen to any one person in the world. But the thing that struck me the most, and always does every time I encounter you, Dottie, is your joy. Now, I know that people who have gone through things, and of course I shared with you, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so at least we have that in common, right? But some people can be that can really define who you are when, in those big moments of life and when medical things happen, especially. But your joy, I would have never guessed all of that stuff about you ever once. Am I wrong, Holly? Like, is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely accurate. Because I only met you a few minutes before this, and I would have never ever pictured that in your story. And you seem to overcome so many odds.
I haven't overcome. Look at what I've been given. I come from a family, I was well educated, I never wanted for anything, and I was taught to help others. Those of us who I was given a brain that creates value. And so I've been able to be a good steward of what I have and help other people. And that's pretty heady that God lets it be me. I wake up every morning, and as we have taught our children, every morning you wake up, you decide whether it's a good day or a bad day. Your life is what you make it.
I love that. Your life is what you make it. And it's so true. I think a lot of times we wait on people and on things, whereas, well, God gave you a couple of hands and a couple of feet and a brain to use. So let's go to it.
I like how you say that these sufferings that you have are a gift almost, and that you've been given them. How has faith played a factor in that? What did your prayer life look like? Did you ever experience like extreme doubt or extreme like highs in your faith through that. So like, how did that look like for you?
Well, I thought it was very interesting that here I am, a Catholic in East Tennessee, where we're less than 2%. So I knew God had a big sense of humor. And it just, I mean, it has served me. Being Catholic has led me to God. I also respect there are many different ways to get to God. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine living with thinking, I'm God, because he sure told me when I was 27 years old that I was not God, and he had the agenda. And because he's been such a backbone for me in my life, I can't imagine not having faith. I can't imagine. That must be horrible. Mm. The absence of God. I just don't see it.
I've said that a lot myself too, Dottie. People who live without faith, I don't know how they do it. We were speaking of hope just this last week, and our great hope is in the Lord. There's a lot of times in your life, I'm sure you've experienced, where you've had to stand up for something and you feel very alone in this world for standing up for it. Again, you mentioned Catholic population isn't huge here, so sometimes certain different aspects of our faith seem to be contrary to maybe some other faiths, but at the same time, truth is truth, and we don't back down from truth. We know the love of the Lord, and that can be a difficult thing sometimes.
I was raised in a family where you stood up for what was right. Mm. You did not look around the room to see if anybody else was standing up. Mm. Not, that's just the way I was raised. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
Yeah.
And if it's gray, don't do it.
Oh, that's great. That's good advice.
I'm going to take that.
Take that advice. Listen, if you're listening right now, you're a young adult, listen to that advice.
If it's gray, don't do it.
If it's gray, don't do it. Right is right, wrong is wrong. If it's gray, stay away. Oh, that rhymes. Oh, my goodness. We might have just come up with a real good rhyme. Okay, that's excellent. So now we're starting to get this picture of the fact that it seems to me, Dottie, that faith is the biggest contributor to the way that you see life. It's seems to be not just the backbone, but it permeates through all these things. No highs or lows, right? That the Lord is still there in all of that. Have there been moments in your life, though, again, where you have felt far away from God? I know for me, it was definitely a time post graduating from college. There was this time where I felt, we're speaking to young adults, so they probably might have experienced this already as well, where God seemed far away. He wasn't, in reality, he wasn't, but in my view, he seemed very far away. Have you experienced that, or has it always just been a close-knit relationship with the Lord?
I will never be a victim. Mm. I work with people who, because of my sense of humor or whatever, who are terminal and just never going to be there, I guess my parents were older when I was born, and I don't understand what you're asking. That I'm just strong. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And so much, if you knew all of the things I'd been graced with, you just can't imagine. You get up every morning, if you start your morning with all that God has given you, mm-hmm. and I'm always excited because I don't know what he's going to bring to me today. and how heady is that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And if you get to hear that awesome music in the background, Dottie has a cool ringtone that I just love. That is so great.
Yeah, bad to the bone.
Bad to the bone. That's hilarious. Of all the ringtones, that is tremendous.
Well, I have to tell you, that was put on my first iPhone by my oldest son. And I didn't even know what it was. I said, I'll get one of those phones if you do it all. Just hand it to me, tell me what my name is. And everybody thought it was so hysterical. And I said, what's so funny about this? And when they told me, I said,
Okay.
That figures.
Yep, that tracks, doesn't it?
As I tell my boys who are in over 6 feet, I brought you in, I will take you out.
And I can make more just like you.
That's right.
I love it. Now, we only have a handful of minutes left together. So I wanted to kind of turn it over to you a little bit. You've been a mentor to some ladies throughout your time, and you have had some great advice that I've been able to glean myself. What advice would you give young adults in today's day and age, understanding that, okay, when I grew up, it's a different day and age. When you grew up, it's a different day and age. But again, it doesn't change truth. What solid advice, and if you want to give it specifically to young ladies, that's fine, but just young people in general, what advice would you give when it comes to facing obstacles? You already mentioned you're strong. What if somebody isn't as strong as that? How would you encourage them to not only, I feel like we should thrive and not survive. Right? I very much feel that the Lord wants us to thrive and not just get through. What advice would you give young adults these days on how to do that?
Well, having 16 grandchildren, I do have these kind of
You do.
conversations.
Get some experience here.
Again, I think it's important. I start my day with the Lord and I end my day with the Lord. And I'm no paragon of virtue because I don't believe that you talk the talk, you walk the walk. And the best thing I can tell them is to look at yourself and be silent. Get off the gerbil wheel, because that's how you'll find out who you are. Remembering that no one will give you the time with the Lord unless you take it. There'll always be one more thing. Take care of yourself. God is always there. He always loves you. One of the great things is you get to start all over every morning. It just find an older person who's been through some adversity. Watch how they live. I have people tell me, "Oh, I want your life." Well, I mean, hey, it's pretty nice, but the whole point is, and I always tell them, it's every day, my friend. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. And what a great response, right? Oh, I want your life. You can have it because the most important aspect of my life is my relationship with the Lord. And you, guess what? You get to have that. You want to be rich beyond measure? Here is the great gift of the Lord. He brings us into his kingship, right? We're royalty because we're children of the King.
Daughters.
Yeah, sons and daughters of the King. So he has made us royalty. So you ever think about that, Holly? Like, I'm sure that you've wanted to trade places with somebody. Maybe from the outside, it looks like they have a better life than you do.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
You felt that, yes?
Oh yeah. It's a very, the comparison game. I feel like that's a very dangerous game to play, right?
I have something that I have taught my children, and they have proved it to be true. If you can write a check for it, it's not important. God, family, friends, and health.
Can't write a check.
Yeah.
So you're just gathering stuff.
It's very true. You know, I don't know if I shared it on this podcast before, but when I first learned how to drive in the great state of Michigan, I was 15 years old, driving, and I saw a bumper sticker, and it said, "He who dies with the most toys wins." Okay. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay. All right. No joke. 2 weeks later, I saw another bumper sticker and it looked kind of similar. When I got close, it said, "He who dies with the most toys still dies." And that put it into perspective for me.
Absolutely.
You're just gathering
Absolutely.
stuff. I love the way you said that, Dottie.
We don't leave with it. We don't leave this earth with any material things.
We leave with what we've done. Right. And, I think I can honestly say, I'm sure Holly would share these sentiments, but it seems like, Dottie, you've done a lot in your time, a lot of great stuff, and you're still, you're saying that you're still around. It must mean the Lord still has something for you. Well, look, did you ever think that you were going to be on a podcast?
No.
No, of course not.
Because I'm a private person.
Yes.
As you well know. I try to do things under the radar.
Yep.
Because who cares? It's not mine. This is God.
That's right.
Everything, every material, money, whatever. It's God's, and it can all be gone tomorrow.
That's right. And you saying you are a private person, and you talking about how your actions speak louder than words. So to come on a podcast where it's only words, but the reason too, like I keep thinking about how many people will be able to hear this and glean info, not just in this moment, but this will be around for as long as people want to hear it. And so in that way, the Lord still wanted to use you here today to affect not just today, but in the future as well, with people that you will never, ever meet, right? And but the Lord is still using not only your gifts and talents, but your experiences and how you've been able to not just overcome them, but to thrive and to be the person that you are today. And we are truly grateful. I thank you for coming on. I would hate for this to be the only time you ever come on. We have some other topics coming in the future that, Holly, what do you think? Should we shoot her a little message?
Yeah.
Hey, if you ever want to talk about this, because I've enjoyed my time, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to say, I admire your perseverance. I admire your faith life, and to everyone listening, take her advice, because I don't know what else is better than that.
I almost didn't even want to talk.
Your wisdom is very well. You're very well versed too.
Yeah, it's one of those. I just want to listen.
Yes.
I just want to sit back and listen, and I could do that with you all day, Dottie. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and we hopefully will have some more conversations in the future with you. I think it'd be tremendous. Listen, if you're listening to this and you know someone who can benefit, share this episode. Even if it's only this episode, share it. There are people out there in desperate need of good, solid, faithful advice. Of course, we'd like it if you like us and subscribe. That'd be wonderful. But until next time, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on Happy Hour.